On everyone, this is Noah from Spanky the Sparky. Today we have two very special guests, Mr. De'Armid Campbell. He is an organizer and assistant business manager out of IBEW 520 in San Angelo. He's been on two other times prior. And we also have International Brotherhood of Workers 7th District Organizing Coordinator Philip Lawhon out of Texas, I do believe. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Cool.
Doing great.
Cool. Philip, I'll start with you because De'Armid, I've had you on in the past. Philip, if you just want to give a brief intro about yourself, maybe 3 to 4 sentences, as much as you want to give, as little as you want to give, and then we'll just dive into it from there.
Okay, great. Yeah, so once again, my name is Philip Lawhon. I'm the district organizing coordinator for the IBEW here in the 7th District. I'm based out of my home local. It's Local 520, Austin, Texas. I was an organizer there for 10 years, and then I became a state organizing coordinator for Central Texas and the Gulf Coast for 10 years, and then have become the district organizing coordinator for the past 3 years, 25-year member in total.
I think actually, De'Armid, you're the one that said it and stuck with me, but I believe you said, maybe you didn't, but I could definitely see you saying this, that whether you have the title of an organizer or not, everyone's an organizer in union labor, and that's something that I firmly believe in. Whether you have the title or not, it's our duty to be an organizer, so I thank you for that. If you are the one that said that, if not, whoever said it, thank you.
Yes.
Take credit.
That's definitely our motto.
Yeah. And I know you guys are both in Texas. Real fast, District 7, for those that don't know, how many states does that cover, or more specifically, which states does that cover?
So it covers 5 states: Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona.
And if I might be very wrong, I believe all of those are right or non-right to work states, excluding Arizona?
Excluding New Mexico.
New Mexico.
New Mexico is a non-right to work state, or
I got them flip-flopped, but
yeah.
okay. So definitely I would consider a more difficult area overall, given the circumstances with union labor, but nonetheless, it's very important. And that's going to lead us into this. Texas is about to become the largest data center hub in the country, with 140 facilities under construction and 962 in the pipeline, which is absolutely astronomical in my opinion. What's the IBEW strategy to make sure union members are capturing that work? And in my opinion, that's going to stem everywhere from the local level, everyone from like just normal members through business managers up to the district level. But I guess because you guys are on a little bit of a different level, we'll start with you, De'Armid. What's the strategy at the local level, at least in your local, to make sure union members are capturing that work?
Well, first and foremost, organizing, getting out there in all forms, from social media to job fairs to the tried and true, hitting the job sites, talking to the workers that are out there, and showing them the union way, as well as then being part of those conversations. So, example, in San Angelo, we have one that's coming down the pipeline. I'm making sure that the IBEW's name is in that mix, that they know we're here, we can supply the workforce, all of that. So just being engaged and active about it.
And for you, Philip, I guess, is there any difference for, where you're at in the structure of everything?
No, it's basically the same. Organize, right? Just to try to address any barriers that we might have in place that slows down the process of bringing in a potential new member. Just as Darren said, making sure that we're relevant and that we're a part of the conversation. All the way up from the, economic development boards, down to the county commissioners, courts, making sure we're a part of the conversation.
And De'Armid, I guess at a local level, right now, given the pipeline of work that's in your area, do you guys have a need for more worker, or I guess more electricians, or are you guys kind of good where you're at with a anticipated pipeline of new workers going to be needed?
No, we're needing them. I mean, especially out in West Texas, where this kind of work hasn't been here. So it's taken everyone by storm. So with the shortage just coming nationally and all of that, no, we're needing them, but we're looking at trying to figure out ways of being able to engage them and bring those new workers in, starting at the high school level as well as then the ones that are already out there, trying to get them in to man these projects.
I think that's smart, getting engaged. I know something that I found interesting, not even really interesting, just forward thinking of both of you. You're both pretty progressive in the means of like social media, which I think is pretty cool because I've talked to certain individuals, certain locals that aren't as forward thinking. For whatever reason, that's on them, but I do greatly appreciate that, and I know many other members would say the exact same thing. Social media isn't the complete answer, but I think right now we have a very big visibility issue, and I think social media at least closes that gap quite a bit, and it's free for the most part, so why not utilize it?
Yes, sir.
And this is something, Diarmid, we talked about, I think it was 4 episodes ago, but TDLR just proposed letting trade school graduates skip 5,000 hours of field experience to sit for a journeyman exam. How big of a threat is that to the apprenticeship model, and what should members do before May 11th, before the May 11th deadline, in your opinion?
So I do believe it is a threat to the apprenticeship model. One thing I will say, and I kind of touched about this on some other podcasts I had done, we've been around for a while. We're tried and true, and we have those roots. But yeah, it's a threat. And more importantly, it's a threat to the industry and the community.
That's true.
Not just the apprenticeship, but the safety that's going to come from the lack of experience and all of that, those issues. That's where I truly see the threat being, is in the communities that this is happening in, and then allowing these avenues to come to fruition.
Something we kind of talked about in that episode was the whole safety aspect. In the construction trades as a whole, there's always in my opinion, it's a blanket push, but there's always talks about safety, and it seems like we always scream about safety, but there are definitely times where they kind of rip that bandage off and say, go to town with it, and I feel like this is a perfect example of that, and I would be highly surprised if politicians allow that to push through. Hopefully it does not happen. Philip, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, we're all doing things to kind of curve the shortage, right, of journeyman electricians. As you guys all know, we just went from a 5-year program to a 4-year program. So we're taking out some of the, I don't want to say unnecessary stuff, but
Yeah.
we're taking out some of the menial stuff that might not use every day in the field, and really, hone in our skills on what we do every day. And, as far as, the trade schools, I mean, that's been an ongoing battle, from the beginning of time, I guess, of the trade school era or whatever. And, it's unfortunate because in my mind, I see it as a cash cow, a money grab for the state of Texas. I feel that there's a lot of players that are involved, through legislative, levels of government, and that, taking, a trade school individual and then, allowing them to be able to, take a test faster is, to me, I just don't foresee them actually getting the quality of an electrician that we're actually looking for in the industry. It's already enough going on with lack of skills, right? And then we're just going to, double down on that. Just doesn't make any sense to me. I know the state of Texas, through my travels, I've noticed a bunch of trade schools being built around the states, and I was kind of curious. I was like, wow, this one specific entity, the it's a state, Texas State Technical College, and they had been building a bunch of facilities across the state, and I noticed it, and then come around November at election time, they actually had it on the ballot as a proposition to fund them fully. And then here we are 2 months later in January the 1st, and then they're talking about, bringing down the conditions, the requirements to take the state test. And, we get so many applicants that come through that have done these trade schools, and we come in and we put them through our hands-on skills assessment, and they're just entry levels. At the end of the day, these individuals have paid anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 to go through this trade school, and they're still entry level. The pass rate currently for the TDLR is at 13%. Is the pass rate for a journeyman's test, and it's kind of funny because in the state of Texas we have probably about 15% market share. So there's a percentage that's the high percentage is the union apprentices that are graduating that are passing the test. And I'm not saying that individuals can't study on their own or get the proper training through trade schools, but most of them are scams, and I just feel that it's not going to do any justice other than some political ties to corporations and big business, and that's all I see this is just another money grab for some entities.
I agree with that. It's not like it's kind of a slap in the face, in my opinion, to the construction trades, specifically electricians. It's not like we're going, and doctors, for instance, there's a massive shortage, but we're not reducing down what they're doing. I'm not saying, I mean, in theory, there's a correlation, I guess, but we are not taking the curriculum for a doctor and shriveling it down. At the same time, why are we doing that for something that's building multi-billion-dollar infrastructure? Not only that, I mean, you're taking out a skill level, but then the safety part. I know myself, if I didn't go through, at least obtain all my hours through my apprenticeship, I can't only imagine shaving off 5,000 of those hours and then being turned loose as a journeyman. Not only for myself, but those I was working around, it would have turned out very poorly.
And, I've actually noticed some of the non-union companies are actually doing skills assessments outside of the licensing right now that because of the shortage, and so I've actually seen them posting on social media and stuff like that. Just come in and take our skills assessment, and we'll pay you accordingly, and this and that. And if they're journeyman level, they're going to pay them journeyman level pay, even if they don't have the license. And that's predominantly what we're doing, and we always have done. At the beginning of the inception of the state licensing back in 2003, the IBEW opposed the licensing. We wanted to control it on the municipality level, and it just seemed that now that it went to the state level, only having 2 state compliance officers for the whole state of Texas is just ridiculously insane. And I mean, we're at the end of the day. I mean, when you come to the IBEW, you're still going to get some sort of an assessment, and then we're going to get you placed accordingly based on your skills. So unfortunately, these individuals that go through this trade school and spend all this money might not work out the best for them. I hope if they just come to us directly up front, and we don't have to get them in debt with some type of trade school. So that's what our hope is.
And that's kind of where I go back to my visibility statement. A lot of people I've talked to throughout the U.S., they have no idea the union. Well, some don't even have any idea the unions exist. Two, they have no idea there's a union in their area, And three, there's a big misconception to become a journeyman electrician that you have to go through the apprenticeship. They don't realize you can test in. And I think all that, in my opinion, goes back to a visibility issue, which I'm a big proponent, obviously, of the social media, but I'm just a dumb guy from Southern Ohio, so I'll leave it at that.
Real quick, you asked too how members could voice their opinion or anyone. You can go to TDLR. They're opening comments. You can do that. Check out 602 out of Amarillo and Lubbock. Their Facebook, they have links, a statement. I've reposted it on IBEW 520 San Angelo's Facebook. So we're getting it out there. But yeah, TDLR, call your local representative. Let them know, hey, this isn't good for the industry and it's not good for Texas.
Yeah, definitely not good for either of them. That is for certain.
Perfect.
Philip, you came from, speaking of non-union work, you came from the non-union side before joining Local 520. When you're talking to a non-union electrician working specifically on a massive data center project today, what's your pitch to try to bring them to the union side of things?
Yeah, basically, I mean, it's pretty much the same as always. I mean, we're talking about having a contract in the workplace, and when these big jobs scale up as far as paying higher wages in the non-union sector, that whenever they leave from there or that specific project, that most likely their wages are going to be the same when they go from one job to the next being in the union. And it's not just one job where you're getting paid a decent wage. It's kind of like prevailing wage or the DOL, Davis-Bacon rates, right? Those are always our rates. And having that contract in the workplace is definitely what I highly recommend and influence the individuals to understand what kind of opportunity they have, and I tell them that everything we do financially in life, we have a contract, whether it's with our cell phone or our vehicle or our lease on our home or mortgage or whatever financial thing we do in life, we have a contract. And it only makes sense to have a contract in the workplace to where we can, that's your main source of income to pay all the bills with those contracts. So why not have one in the workplace where you're generating the money, right? And so also we cover the healthcare. Healthcare and retirement is definitely a big kicker. Just because the non-union sites paying $3 more than what we're paying. Once we put it all the pen to paper and lay it all out, a lot of people realize what they're missing out on or leaving to the side that opportunity. Tool lists, stuff like that. I talk to people every day that bring in $2,000-3,000 worth of power tools into these sites. And some of these sites are 20 to 30,000 tradesmen on there 24/7, and you're just mistaken if you think something's not going to come up missing. And who's going to pay for those tools, right? And just revert back to the healthcare and just really kind of talking to the individual and finding out what their issues are, right? And trying to get in to those specific things to really get them to understand that there is more value than just one objective or two in their life. There could be 3 or 4 things that working for with the IBEW and being a union member can affect them across the board. So.
And then Dearmid, more on a local level, because you're going to be dealing with potential new members and even current members every single day. What are some of the, when you're speaking to non-union electricians in your area, what's, I guess, the biggest pushback you receive initially about jumping ship? Or misconceptions?
Initially, they're not familiar with us. They don't know how we operate. So it is just talking to them, showing them, look, We're no different. Our contractors operate the same way, with the exception that 9 times out of 10 it's going to be fair. Not saying that on the open side there's not fair contractors on, but 9 times out of 10 you're going to get that dignity, you're going to get that respect, you're going to see that difference. And a lot of times talking to them, just not only about the money, but that simple aspect of, hey, you got a family, you tell this guy, hey, I get my kids every other Saturday. They're going to work with you. They're not going to tell you, no, you just go on down the road then. That resonates a lot. They get to see that they're not just a number or someone that should be grateful because someone had a job for them. They see that, no, they can have that respect and take pride in what they do, and be a human being, honestly. I mean, let's get down to it. Just that dignity and respect aspect is big. So.
And I keep going back to it, but a lot of these misconceptions and just incorrect thoughts and knowledge is in my opinion, a visibility issue. I know you guys both are pretty proactive with social media. I just wish we could get more locals, more leaders on board with the idea of it. I think that would change a lot of things. Obviously, it would take time, but getting the correct information out there is going to be a very big battle. So it'll be interesting. With Stargate, Google's $40 billion investment, and Vantage Frontier all landing in Texas, which those are massive investments in Texas, demand for skilled electricians will outpace supply fast. How does IBEW scale its apprenticeship pipeline without sacrificing training standards?
Well, so I can speak on that as far as the state level goes. So, we have the ranked applicant list when you come and apply for the apprenticeship. You go through the interview process and the aptitude test and all that. And then once you get selected for the apprenticeship, well, typically we hit a capacity level of we can only bring in, might be 200, right? And maybe 300 and 300 in the large cities, right? And we're talking about, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. We could typically only bring in maybe 200 to 300 brand new students. So we've actually partnered with Quanta, the Lazy Q Ranch in LaGrange, Texas, and they're predominantly an outside training ground. And we've actually partnership with them through our national ETA, the Electrical Training Alliance, that we're going to have a boot camp. Basically, if you're on a ranked list in any local union, you can opt to come to the boot. If you do not get selected for the class, you can actually go to LaGrange, Texas, and go through our boot camp program, which it's a 14-day, all-inclusive, paid. They pay them hourly there. They pay for the housing, all the food, entertainment, all that, and they get 135 hours of hands-on training. And then from there, they go into our CML, our computer module learning system, which is the interim credentials, which is basically your first year on the computer. And what most apprenticeships have went to the blended learning already, so it's nothing new to a lot of the locals in Texas. So the individual will take 135 hours of hands-on, pretty intensive hands-on training, 12 hours a day for 14 days straight. And then all they have to do is pay to get there and get home, and everything else is covered. And then basically once they complete their curriculum online, then they're qualified to be placed into the second year of the apprenticeship. And it kind of goes back to the TDLR thing that we just talked about and all that. And we're looking at different ways to try to get people turned out faster, right? But not taking away their actual hours of training, and that we're just crunching it down into a smaller time frame. And they're still going to have to get their whatever hours are qualified to go take the state exam. They're still going to have to qualify for the hours to graduate from the apprenticeship and all that. But that's just starting here in April. So it's going to be pretty big. We're going to see how many courses we could do, and in a short time frame. And I think it's going to be very beneficial to a lot of potential new members to actually have that foot in the door right out the gate. There was about close to about 40 contractors there, and they were all said, we'll hire them right out the gate as soon as they graduate. We want to put them in our rank and file and get them out in the field and start working. So that was a pretty cool
Yeah.
thing that we have set up, and we have some financial partners, that are associated with it, and that kind of work with Microsoft and Google and different entities like that. So, but yeah, so that's one thing we're doing.
Yeah, that's I didn't realize that existed. That's extremely cool, especially because obviously in today's economy, getting funds together, especially starting out to go to things like that, would be very costly, I'm assuming. And the fact that I think you said someone's paying for those costs for those students, that's massive in my opinion. That's awesome. And Dearmid,
It's the customers, right? I
yeah,
mean, so it's customers that are investing into their workforce, and they're believing in the IBEW, and they're investing in us, and that's a really big thing. So
that's awesome. And then Dearmid, more on like I guess a local level, is there anything you have to add into that?
So I'm actually on the Texas Regional Pathways Network board here with our Workforce Commission, and that is a state designed program to help bring trades programs into the high schools to
That's awesome.
then put them on a path to an employer or to an apprenticeship. So I'm working with that so we can start working on the high school, even into the middle school level, introducing these students to career paths. And then as well with the interim credentials program, I'm looking at trying to utilize that on our construction electrician side. So if an individual wants to come in and maybe doesn't want to go that typical apprenticeship route, we can still offer them schooling and education that can help advance them in their career. So I'm trying to see avenues and ways that we can develop classes and CE programs through that interim credentials, which is a phenomenal program. If y'all aren't familiar with it, definitely check it out. But to be able to utilize that, so we're educating students and electricians all around, not only through the apprenticeship, but through the CE program as well.
And that was going to be my next question. You don't have to give a direct answer because I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. But do you think the IBEW as a whole should spend a little more focus, I guess, on attracting, people from the non-union side, I guess being more aggressive in attracting non-union that's currently working with the experience, given the pipeline of work that's in the potential future?
yeah, I mean, we are, the IBEW is investing a lot of money through our National Labor Management Committee with NECA and IBEW, and we do have a department that is a digital organizing department, and they basically do a lot of advertising and targeting, geofencing non-union job sites, sending out sending out information to people's resumes that are on Indeed and
That's awesome.
ZipRecruiter. So we do a lot of resourcing that way, inviting them to the local unions, inviting them to job fairs, putting a lot of social media out there as well. So we do have a third party in-house kind of a advertisement agency that's not just totally blasting out that it's IBEW, but also it's a strategy is just in recruiting, just to have that ice break conversation, right? That conversion conversation That way, somebody just don't get turned away, from whatever, mishaps or misunderstandings or fear of the unknown that they have or misinformation. It allows us to break that ice and have that conversation. So we are investing quite a bit of money into that. I think that department's been going on well ever since COVID is actually when it started. So we decided that we do need to have a digital presence and that. Now, could we be bigger? Yeah, for sure. I mean, most definitely. There's a lot of ground to cover on the internet.
Yeah, that's very true. That's I didn't know that existed either. That's good to know. That's something that's very well needed, and it sounds like it's doing a decent job. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we use their services all the time. From everything from helping advertise about job fairs to hot spots to hot jobs to hot areas to wherever we need their assistance, they're just phone call away, and they'll jump right on it and put resources towards it.
That's awesome. This kind of just jumping ship a little bit. Do labor battles in other districts, like the expiring contracts in Los Angeles and the unresolved PG&E negotiations, have ripple effects on organizing efforts in the 7th District?
Not for me personally. I haven't seen any real major issues. I feel in the 7th District, there's been a real strong demand and interest in becoming union. I mean, we're growing left and right. Now, we're kind of talking about two different sectors, of organizing and of the industry, right? And then, so, you're talking about having public works types of contracts and PLAs and things of that nature. And then you're talking about having units of, utilities and different things of that nature to where, we just last year alone, I think we won over 16 utility contracts
That's
through
awesome.
the workers organizing. Those were voted elections that happened. So, I mean, we're seeing a big uptick in interest of being union down here in Texas. So, I have not seen any ripple effects. Now, that could, play that, we're a right to work state and that's a non right to work state and things of that nature. So, we really don't even see much of that type of work anyway. I mean, so it really hasn't affected us much. I mean, we're on the bottom, clawing and climbing our way to the top.
Yeah.
We're not already here and then kind of getting right down, but I could see how that could affect other areas, though, for sure.
Dearman, do you have anything to add into that?
I'll say, it's one of those kind of things is that we're Texas, right? No matter how it goes at the end of the day, we're going to keep moving forward, keep doing what we got to do to strengthen the union here. And regardless how it falls, it's just kind of the Texas mentality is, well, we'll get it done. We'll find a way. So.
And I'll go back to, you had mentioned about the just a lot of interest. I will say, at least through my personal social media accounts, out of, I would say, every 100 people that contact me, I would say between just Texas and California alone, I would say that accounts for probably 75% of the people that reach out to me through social medias for union-related positions in Texas or California. I would say out of that 75%, it's a pretty equal split down the middle between the two states. So there's definitely a lot of interest out there. Obviously, my page is focused towards the electrical field. I mean, I get people interested in plumbing, every trade you could think of. But Texas and California are by far the biggest two that I get interest in. So it's interesting.
Well, it seems that a lot of people from California are, well, not seems, it has been. I mean, they have moved to Texas, and there's a lot of area for growth out here and development and new neighborhoods and new homes, and I get it that, California's, a lot of the areas are really condensed, and, there's not a lot of room to build a bigger home or own a piece of, an acre lot, or,
Yeah.
or even more than that. So I understand, and, the taxes and different stuff like that. And, but, I think that I kind of feel that there's a lot of similarities once you get talking to the folks in those
Hmm.
areas. We all kind of, well, us Texans have, you know what we like is, land and property and all that, and so do a lot of people that are coming from California. Yeah, well, so.
Yeah. I'll say at least you see it in sports frequently now. But yeah, taxes is definitely a big one. But yeah, I do know there's a big shift of population leaving California, and I know Texas is a hot spot for a lot of them, and Ohio seems to be coming more relevant for a landing spot for some of them. So it's interesting. Um, and Dearmid, I'm going to direct this more towards you with non-union contractors that will be offering big signing bonuses on data center projects. How do you counter that when a worker just wants the highest paycheck right now? And that's something, especially with the younger generation, they just see dollar signs. They don't see a future most of the time. I've been there, and I'm sure you both have been there at one point. But how do you counter all of that?
Well, it is that education aspect, and that's one thing I've tried to do down here is put on classes for financial responsibility, stuff like that. Show them that the benefit of having insurance and everything is more than just that dollar amount. So I think that that's a big part, and in building that culture to where if you are bringing travelers in, they want to stay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having brotherhood and sisterhood nights, putting on barbecues at the hall for no reason but just because of the camaraderie, developing that culture and that atmosphere to keep them here. But just letting them know that you can chase that dollar, but eventually that dollar is going to stop and you're going to want to set down some roots, So why don't you just start here? Because in 20 years, you'd want to. And just kind of showing them the benefit of that, of the stability and what can come with it.
And then more on I guess, a higher level. Do you have anything to build off of that, Philip?
Yeah, I mean, it's predominantly the same thing. I mean, it's, you know, possibly, just educating our contractors of their competition, letting them know that, we have the ability to go in and talk with their customers, and let them know what they're up against as the contractor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what their competition is doing, and what the customer's competition is doing. And if they want to be the first data center on the block, then they need to invest in that workforce to be able to put that online first. And, we've done that in the past. We've done some of that, and it's worked out good. But yeah, I mean, those conversion conversations, just, building trust and educating them about, what happens, in the long run when they're chasing the money and that. And I get it. I mean, we have a lot of IBEW members that's all they do is chase the
Mm-hmm.
money. But fortunately for them, they do have a retirement and health care that follows them.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to educate the workers, is that you could do exactly the same thing you're doing here. Once you get that yellow journeyman's golden ticket in your pocket, you can network across the states and all the major cities just the same you're doing now, but you just don't have to start over every place you're going. You're able to go in, and whatever the market is bearing for those wages in that community, obviously that's what you're going to get paid, and they're used
Mm-hmm.
to that. But being able to have that health care and that retirement follow you from company to company. And I mean, I've talked to many electricians. I was just talking to a 67-year-old non-union electrician that says he wanted to finish out 5 more years so he could have enough money to get him through a couple of years of retirement, and he had nothing. He had no retirement. He had nothing to fall back on. And, I was telling him, I mean, you still going to put in 5 more years. You could come and at least get a 5-year investment into our pension fund and
Yeah.
at least get a couple $100 check a month, if not anything. But, I saw a meme or a video the other day that was saying, hey, where's all the retired non-union electricians, and it's like, and I mean, there's a lot of people that save their money,
Yeah.
and union and non-union. There's union members that don't save their money, and people live check to check, and it's being spent. It's a lot harder to put money away when it's not being put away automatically. And with our retirements, it's above and beyond your check, and you don't see it, and it's building up. And I can be a testament of it for 25 years. The retirement builds up fast, and if you're on the road, it'll even build up twice as fast.
Yeah.
And that's a big kicker to me is and it's not just because I got gray hair and all that. I believed in it from the beginning. That the retirement was going to be good, and that's what was preached to me and taught. Educated. I was educated on that, and I mean it's paid off, and now here I am in a position to where I am going to have a decent retirement. I'm not going to just be depending on $1,200 Social Security check, if that's even here by the time I retire or you retire or anybody retires, right? We can't depend on that. And we also have to fight for our pension funds and political environment and all that, so that but those are more sound than I think than Social Security, because Social Security could be just turned with a switch on the
Yeah.
governmental situation. But as far as our pension funds and that, I mean, they're there, they're solid, they're built up. I mean, we just had an individual NEBF contribution. Now you could actually add money into your NEBF fund above and beyond the 3% that's already going in there.
That's cool. I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, depending on your local union, if they've negotiated that into their contract, it just became available last about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. It became eligible. It's NEIBF National. I don't know. It's NEBF. It's individual contribution to the NEBF, but it
National.
has to be negotiated in your contract. So I
Okay.
know in Local 20 in Dallas, Texas, they just negotiated 50 cents.
That's pretty cool.
So 50 cents per man hour is going into on top of the 3% NEBF.
That's
So it's
awesome.
it's a really good kicker, good shot in the arm to your pension.
That's awesome. And you kind of hint or touched on politics a couple sentences ago. How does national political pressure on labor affect your ability to organize on the ground in a right-to-work state like Texas? And I guess, Diarmid, I'll start with you on more of a local level. How, what are some of the issues you run into?
So of course, me bringing lawsuits for prevailing wage violations, this and that, and having to go through the NLRB. I do watch that because those are the avenues that I have to go through. I do try to have good local relationships with the council members, the mayor, the Chamber of Commerce, all of that, and you want to be active locally. And you want to be able to move on either side of the aisle. So try to strengthen those. We try to be aware of it. I do feel where I'm at, I do have a good working relationship with my local representatives all throughout the Concho Valley in my area. So I try to utilize that. But we got to pay attention to it, and kind of to go back to that Texas thing is, if the door shuts, well, then I need to find a window, because we still got to show that just because you're messing with it doesn't mean that it was broke, and that we still need to try to utilize it. And so, you just gotta keep moving forward. But no, I have seen it affect some of the avenues with longer rulings, with not even be able to come to a ruling because it was crippled, and they couldn't make a decision, so having to wait and see what comes of that. So.
And then Philip, on a district level or across multiple states, what are some issues you see, or some political
Yeah,
pushback?
so you know what Darren was talking about there. He's talking about the political arena itself, right? And the laws and the legislations and different things that get passed and that. And I think that sometimes we're missing the mark altogether as a whole. Is that it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or independent. This is an organization of electrical workers, and whether you're, what ethnicity you are, or what marriage you have, or whatever the case might be, we treat everybody equally here, and we got to understand that we have to stick together as workers, in whatever political environment we're in, because as Darren just mentioned, he talks to his people there in his area. Well, believe it or not, they're some of them are Republicans and some of them are Democrats, right? And more Republicans than not in the state of Texas, obviously. But
Yeah.
we have to have those relationships with those people to be able to make the changes for the workers. And there's a lot of times that those parties are sympathetic to our needs and what we're doing and what needs to be done for the industry, and they rely on us as professionals to educate them on what's good or bad, right? And so we have to make sure that we're talking to all parties, right? And that we're involved in all the decision making and being on those committees and being on those boards and being down at the Capitol and or the federal level or whatever it is, and being relevant, right? And being relevant and being out there in the community and speaking on behalf of the workers. And just for a lot of people out there that 50%, maybe 40% of the IBEW, is a Republican, voting member, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, we all have to step up and talk to our politicians about what's right and wrong for our industry. It's not, typically we go back and say, oh, well, Democrats support labor the most and this and that. And I mean, for the most part, that has been the history and the dynamics of it. But at the end of the day, when there are a majority of whatever party's in there, we have to make sure that we're educating those people and that we're out there on the forefront. Whenever your local calls on you to be an activist, to call your representative, it doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat. Call them and voice your concerns and tell them what the issues are, right? And that's what's a major thing, that we have to make sure that we're educating. Even, in the political arena, we do work with the state AFL-CIOs, and we go around and do member-to-member door knocking and talk to other union other IBEW members in our communities and talk to them. And matter of fact, all unions, we talk to them on our political campaigns and stuff like that. But it's just all about educating and communicating to the politicians of what our needs and wants are for the industry, and I think it's very important.
I fully agree with that. Kind goes a long way, no matter whether you agree with something or not. A simple conversation can go a long way. And I'll kind of end it with this. Philip, you mentioned your son will be topped out as a local 520 journeyman in 2027, so that's exciting. Congratulations on that. What's the one thing you would change about how the IBEW tells its story to young workers, and does watching your own kids choose their paths influence how you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we tell a pretty good story to young people. Like Darren had said, we're really trying to get in there and educate, high school students all the way down into, junior high schools and stuff like that. But, understanding that, this trade is a trade that you could be a great provider for you and your family, and that you don't have to go into debt at a school, at a college, and things like that to become an educated person, and to have a good career path. And I think that the more and more that we're out there talking to the high school, dean of students or counselors or principals, and continue construction technology instructors, is the more and more we get out there and educating them. I mean, we have members in every school district across the nation, and we should be there, talking to them about the importance of, getting, or not even just the importance, but the the level of an opportunity that's there for them to be a great provider for them and their family. And I mean, I believe my son has seen what things I've provided for him and my family as a union electrician, and I think he sees that path, and he's taken that path on, and I believe he's gonna be a great provider for him and his family as well. And I think it's just once again, just being relevant and being out there and talking to people and getting into these high schools. And like I said, I mean, there's not a member that does not live where a high school is. Every member lives where a high school is, and about every other high school has a construction technology program in it. And we need to be in there, educating those folks that we need to push for more trade schooling in the high schools, and that'll cut out all this other trade school stuff and all that's going on with TDLR. If we can get them out of that part of it and get them into the apprenticeship and as a second year apprentice, I mean, that's great. Have them do internship work in the summers that they're not graduated from school yet, or we could do those things. There's a lot of stuff that can be done out there to even get them hands-on training while they're still in high school.
I fully agree with that. And Dearmid, I guess I don't believe you have any children in the IBEW, but what's one thing you would change about how the IBEW tells its story to young workers?
Kind of like Philip said, and I'm speaking on the 7th district. I think we've kind of seen that push that we need to reach them. And so I've seen a lot of the locals starting to get heavier with the social media, with the podcast, going to these avenues that the younger generation goes to. So I really will take my hat off to the 7th district and realizing that, hey, journeyman electricians aren't born, right? They're made. You don't come out with the tool belt on saying, where can I go to work? You got to go through it. And we're seeing that the way to do that is through the younger generation. So, I really do think we are trying to reach them. I know that's why I'm trying to do what I'm doing, getting on these boards, getting active, because we see that younger generation is going to be the future. So I think we're taking the right steps. I think the IBEW as a whole is seeing that there is a shortage. What do we got to do to reach this younger generation? So I think it is coming. I think the IBEW realizes it. I think the 7th District's doing a great job in exploring those avenues. And it is. It's just having this conversation here saying, hey, they're there. What do we got to do to reach them? And people actually engaging and talking.
That's true.
I don't think there's a lot that needs to be changed. I just think that we need to do more of it, right? So I think it's like, just putting more effort to it, putting more resources towards it. And like we did a job fair in Dallas last week. We had 500 people show up to the job fair.
That's awesome.
And we brought in 100 new members that night, day one member, and they got a referral and went to work. These
awesome.
were all electricians. And Nika, we partnered with Nika on the job fair, and they put out a social media thing on Instagram, and anyway, they said they got 1 million views off of this job fair ad,
That's
and I
awesome.
was like, wow. I was like, but when they did that, because we were advertising for the job fair at 3+ years experience, well, we got 200 people show up that had no experience, which was great because
Yeah.
we do have an opportunity for them. We just at that hiring event we weren't putting that effort towards that, but we did actually capture all their information. We had somebody there from the apprenticeship was talking to them, and we actually got a lot of them jobs the very next day.
That's awesome.
We did have a list of quite a few entry level people that was coming through that had already came through. So we had to exhaust that list, and then we were able to dive into this next list of entry level folks. But yeah, it was really good. I was highly impressed
That's
that they
awesome.
got 1 million views off of a job fair posting.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
really
it was
good.
pretty interesting. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, now, I mean, I think that we should definitely encourage our younger members to get more involved with the social media for sure. With promoting the IBW. I mean, because they're already involved in it. Um, I saw a local the other day that was, I think they were giving $25 out for every registered social media post that they did about their local union. I thought that was pretty progressive. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Obviously you have to kind of, you know, get a little education, but before they will go out there and let you do that. I mean,
Hmm.
you could do it on your own or whatever, but for them to pay back money to that member,
Yeah.
for them putting a post out there was pretty cool. I thought that was inventive.
That is really cool. That's a good way to especially get younger members to
Yeah,
do it.
with that money.
Yeah. That's really cool. But
And Dermot, he built such a great relationship. He had a cat that he organized in off the street,
I,
and he won't even leave him no more. That cat is so attached to Dermot now. That's how good of an organizer Dermot is. He'll pull a cat off the street and bring him in
that's
and
funny.
build a relationship with him.